Good morning. Ooh, I love that. Thank you. So I actually love being in Newcomb Hall. How about anyone out there love being in Newcomb Hall? Yes, I love it. So I'm Althea Brooks, and I'm Senior Director of Lifetime Learning in the Office of Engagement. It's a pleasure to welcome you to More Than the Score this morning. Can you see me okay?
Turn up the volume, please.
Turn up the volume. How's that? I'll try to talk a little closer into the microphone. So welcome. Our partners for More Than a Score is the Alumni Association, and they provide us great space. So when we're not at Alumni Hall, we're normally here at Newcomb Hall. So thanks for being with us this morning. Special thanks to the Lifetime Learning team who works so hard on putting together More Than the Score. We begin in about April in planning More Than the Score. And lately, I have faculty that call me in the fall, like now, saying, can I be on More Than the Score next year? So that's a real privilege to have faculty looking at this program and wanting to be a part of it. So special thanks to Dana Mays, Mary Lynn Musser, Susan Lynch, Keandra Morris, and the entire Office of Engagement team who helps us put together these lecture series. We have the privilege of having, my microphone's not cooperating here this morning. We have the privilege of having Alice Raucher, the architect of the university, with us this morning, and I'll introduce her in just a few minutes. If you would, go ahead and power down your microphone, your cell phones. Go ahead and turn it off for the hour and be here with us. Special thanks to two sponsors who saw the need and provided us funding to help support the refreshments that you had this morning, the coffee and the great breads and fruit. So thank you. Sponsors, they asked to remain anonymous. So I wanted to at least shout out to them. I know one's here with us today, so thank you so much. If you would, when you receive the electronic surveys, if you'll take a moment and fill that out for us, it really does help us plan our future More Than the Score programs. So thank you. Now, let me introduce our speaker for the morning. Alice Raucher is the architect for the University of Virginia. She oversees the university-wide land use and campus planning projects. She advises the Board of Visitors on the development of the university's capital planning and design guidelines. Alice oversees the architectural design of all capital projects and provides professional guidance on selection of consultants associated with the planning and building and landscape projects. Alice oversees the renovation and restoration of the university's historical structures and works with the University Advancement Office on the Jeffersonian Grounds initiatives to enable thoughtful stewardship of the academical village. Alice previously served as senior architect, major project planner, and chair of the design steering team for Yale University. Before joining Yale University, Alice held senior positions at notable architecture firms based in New York City and managed several significant restoration and renovation projects. She also held faculty positions at New York Institute of Technology, School of Architecture and Design, and at Syracuse University School of Architecture, including serving as director of the school's Florence program in Italy. Alice earned a bachelor's degree in studio art and art history from Queens College of the City University of New York. She earned her master's in architecture from Syracuse University School of Architecture. She is a registered architect in New York, Connecticut, and Virginia. She holds an NCARB certification. Alice is a member of the American Institute of Architects, the Association of University Architects, and holds leadership in the Energy and Environmental Design certification. Please help me thank and welcome Alice Raucher. to more than the score.
Thank you very much. Whoa. I think that's a little too loud. Is that good? Wow. All right. Well, it's very loud. Can you lower it just a smidge? Perfect. Thank you. So the title of this talk is What Do the Cavalier Inn, Brandon Avenue, and UHall Have in Common? But really, I know what's on your mind is what the heck is going on around here. For those of you who heard my talk when I was a second year, you may remember that I made some observations about UVA's unique culture as a newcomer. And I'm proud to say that in the span of a mere 4.5 years, I am fully immersed in all things UVA. But seriously, as an introduction, I am now in my 5th year as architect for the university, and we've had some great support from the university and the surrounding communities, and to do some of the incredible projects that I'm going to share with you today. And I joined an office of professionals whose mission we take very seriously, which is the stewardship, as Althea mentioned, the stewardship of our grounds, not only in the restoration and maintenance of our historic core, but also in the design of our new structures. In our office, we are a lean and mean team. We have separate disciplines of architecture, landscape architecture, historic preservation, to name a few, but there's not one project where all of us don't participate in some way. We have a very integrated group, which ensures that not one discipline takes precedence over the other. And because we are just 15, we reach out and we collaborate with a lot of our colleagues across grounds, from facilities management, parking and transportation, the provost's office, etc. Not good seats for you. Maybe you need to move. Sorry. It's my husband. I can say that to him. And we also have key framework studies that are posted on our website. So if you go to our website, which is officearchitect.virginia.edu, you'll see some of these major land use studies, as well as a lot of the master planning studies that I'll be sharing with you today. And just to give you a little sense of how busy we are in the office, this is a sampling of some of our projects. So not only do we have a lot of planning and capital projects on our boards, but we also participate in a lot of external relations with the Art and Architectural Review Board, the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, et cetera, which really keeps us involved in our surrounding communities. So back to the question at hand. What do the Cavalier Inn, Brandon Avenue, and UHall have in common? And the answer to that question is that they are all part of a strategic planning initiative that we are engaged in our office. And you may wonder, why is that? What is strategic planning? Well, this diagram represents about 1,200 contiguous acres of UVA grounds. So everything shaded in green is what we call our grounds. And we got to those 1,200 acres over the last 200 years. So we started, of course, with the initial 40 acres from Mr. Jefferson's University with a cohesive, planned core at the lawn with the rotunda. And over the next 200 years, we grew, sometimes opportunistically, sometimes speculatively, but over the period of time, especially with the advent of the automobile, we grew without thinking about how to connect various parts of grounds to make them more walkable, more bikeable, etc. So we were dependent on the car in a lot of ways to get around grounds. And so in 2008, our office conducted and published the Grounds Plan, which is a framework plan that looks at various land use propositions around grounds and looks at ways of making grounds a little more connected. So what you see up here, shaded with North Grounds and Athletics and the Emmett Ivy Corridor, are some land use planning studies we currently have going on around grounds in order to, as I mentioned, make the grounds more walkable and not be dependent on the automobile for those connections. So over the past 4 years, we've had the great success of being presenting and getting approval for many of these master planning efforts. In addition to land use studies, we've looked at ways of using these properties and in some cases developing actual capital projects that I'll be sharing with you today, such as the ones you see highlighted, the softball stadium, the hotel and conference center, and all the way down to student health and wellness and Bond House, which is our latest student residential building on Brandon Avenue. So while the Cavalier Inn has top billing in the title, I'm going to start with the furthest south location at Brandon Avenue and explain the two projects that are located there, Student Health and Wellness and Bond House. So back in 2016, we were beginning to, in a way, develop Brandon Avenue, which was a city street, in an ad hoc manner, meaning we would find a parking lot and think about what could be built on it. So we took a step back, especially since its strategic location. It's located right adjacent to Central Grounds, in between the health system and the academical village and other academic buildings, as you can see, in a 5-minute walk and a 10-minute walk from the lawn and South Lawn. So it was a strategic location. And you can see here, let's see if the pointer works. Here is here's the lawn and the rotunda, and here's South Lawn, JPA, and here is Brandon Avenue. And you can see all these blank areas were surface parking lots. So a strategic location without a cohesive master plan. So what we did, working with consultants Perkins and Will, we thought about making the connection from the lawn and South Lawn and arranging buildings around a cohesive center so that much in the way the lawn is constructed around the green, the buildings are supported by the green is supported by the buildings, they're inextricably linked. We think about master planning in much the same way. So we thought about developing a working landscape, which is the central green median, which is actually stormwater biofiltration and maintenance, so that if Brandon Avenue is considered a ridge, this green space is a working landscape preventing all stormwater from either going down to an existing stormwater pond or the Valley Road neighborhood, which is just to the west of it. So this is the same plan turned 90 degrees. So the lawn and the rotunda are up here. This is Old Capel Hall, as you can see. Old Capel Hall, as you see here. And what we thought about is making this median. So this is a one-way loop around Brandon Avenue, and we started thinking about what other buildings would go around this project, around the green. So this was from our master plan. So diagrammatically, we knew that Bice House was existing, and we thought about developing student residential area around here so that it would form a student neighborhood, and it would be smaller scaled adjacent to the historic residential neighborhood of the Valley Road neighborhood. The areas in purple are considered, are planned to be academic buildings, and then this blue building is what we proposed for the student health and wellness building, since it was adjacent to the health system. So you'll see as we develop this a little further, it's changed a little slightly after we started programming the buildings themselves. But this is a computer rendering of what Brandon Avenue's master plan would look like. So this is now fully constructed Bond House, Bice House, which was an existing student residential building. We're currently in design for what we call Brandon 2 at the moment, since it's not yet designed, built, or named, South Lawn, and new and old Capel Halls, with the Student Health and Wellness Center in the foreground. So you really can see that there's this continuity of grounds into this area that was formerly a city street. And this is the site under construction, with Bond House in the foreground. And if you go down to Brandon Avenue now, you'll see a lot of activity in this area for the student health and wellness. It's quite a transformation if you get a chance to go down there. So this is what we were faced with. This is, a shot of pre-existing Brandon Avenue before demolition began. A lot of cars, a lot of surface parking lots, not necessarily a very commodious area to walk as a pedestrian. And this was the vision for the working landscape, the green median, giving the name of the Green Street to this master plan, And the idea of extending grounds so that it may not feel exactly like the same architecture, but there's a sense of the interconnection between landscape and buildings, and brick sidewalks using our standard light fixtures, etc. And this was a little further down the street. You may remember I think the 400 block of Brandon Avenue, which was a very low-scaled residential building that was going down the hill. And this was our rendering for Bond House, which you can now see under construction. But again, it's meant to be very open, transparent ground floor, very student active, very pedestrian and bicycle friendly. So this is now an aerial shot. We had a drone come out a couple of weeks ago just to show this under construction. So this is the green street, which will be landscaped and planted to be very lush, but it's still a working landscape. Bond House is now home to 311 or so students, second-year students primarily, and now Bice House was once kind of a singular tower, now feels like it's part of an integrated student neighborhood. And so we make these connections through the green fingers, if you will. So we're making an improved intersection from McIntyre along Ruppel Drive to Brandon Avenue. There'll be a green accessible connection from South Lawn down to the Green Street. There'll be another connection from this paved but treed area we call the Bosque, where we'll be able to have food trucks for the students. And then this is the quad that is a green space adjacent to new student health and wellness that connects down to the health system. We did know that there's not a lot of green space for the health system, so this allows there to be a little bit more of green open space and allows various ways of moving through grounds without necessarily going on the streets. So this is a view of the Student Health and Wellness Center. You may be familiar with the Elson Student Health Center, which is on the corner of JPA and Brandon Avenue. After a lot of programming studies, that building was had really outgrown, or the program had outgrown the building. And so this is now a much different building. While it's still a place where students will go to get to get well, to get their flu shots, et cetera, it's much more focused on student wellness and education. There'll be a teaching kitchen. There'll be other open social spaces which will activate the street, so that in addition to going for the highest levels of sustainability, as we do on all our projects, this building is much more focused on student wellness and uses a term, we use a term called biophilia, which is the human's innate need for connection to the outdoors. And these were tenets that were utilized when we thought about designing the building, so that all the rooms have a great deal of sunlight and access to the exterior. This is a major lobby which will be connecting Monroe Lane to Brandon Avenue. And all these spaces, at least these here and the social spaces in the lobby, will be open for the students late into the night for studying and social spaces. So they'll have alternatives of places to go if they don't want to go to the corner. And this is just a rendering shot of what the building looks like in connection with Bice House. So this Student Health and Wellness building, as I mentioned, is under construction and will be occupied, what do we know? This is 2021. So hopefully by January, February 2021, this will be in operation. So the Emmett Ivy Corridor, you may have heard a lot about this in the last couple of years. President Ryan's strategic plan lists the open grounds at the Emmett Ivy Corridor as one of the key initiatives of his strategic plan. And the reason why that is, we're zooming in a little bit closer to the site, is that this is 14.5 acres that sits not only at a major intersection of Emmett Street and Ivy Road, but it also is a geographic center. While the lawn and the rotunda will always be the heart and soul of the university, geographically, this 14.5 acre parcel is incredibly important strategically, with all the academic buildings located in North Grounds and then in Central Grounds. So the key to this parcel and why it makes it so strategic is not only its location, but the fact that it's in a way impenetrable. That up until very recently, there were no ways of kind of getting around it. And so if you accept that blue is the pedestrian walkways and orange are bike lanes, you can see essentially that the hole in the donut for development is the Ivy Corridor, this parcel, and athletics, so that you really cannot get around to North Grounds except by going very far out of your way. So what we thought about as we were coming up with a master plan is how do we make a rational set of streets and roadways that allow that continuity to just weave it into the city and into grounds. So this was from our master plan, and as you can see, it took a whole series of curb cuts. Previously, there were about 11 or so curb cuts here, reduced it down to 3, and then developed a number of pathways that would connect even up and over the railroad bridges. Now, again, this is our master planning ideas. But in a way that it would weave this whole area back into grounds and make it traversable by a pedestrian. So this was the site previously with the Cavalier Inn right here. This is the existing 1,200 car parking garage and the existing daylit stream. And two of the things we thought about on this site were that the stream and the garage are both amenities. And so we worked with those two ideas and came up with a master plan. Now, the Cavalier Inn has been down for a little over a year now, but it's kind of amazing to see and to be reminded about how imposing this structure was for a very long time. This was the vision that we had about opening up the corner and allowing that corner green to work cooperatively with Cars Hill Field, Nameless Field, and the IRC, the International Residential College, across the way to form a much broader civic space. So even though it's not considered necessarily a gateway to the university, it certainly provides a marked entrance and denotes a certain change in urbanism as you move up to the rotunda, which you can see we've judiciously cleared some trees just so you can see the rotunda. Excuse me. And if you think nothing changes here at the institution, in a relatively short period of time, we've had a beautiful field of clover planted here. And as we move forward with our designing and our construction, this is now the site, and it's pretty remarkable. This is still taken last spring, the idea that you will be able to see the rotunda as the trees come down, as the leaves come down. And this is a design rendering to show what the open corner will actually look like. We've done a lot of hydrological studies over a period of time and discovered that there's a great deal of stormwater that needs to be stored on this site. So rather than just a planted green, we're going to be having a stormwater pond, not unlike the stormwater facility at the Dell. So the other thing that was hindering connectivity is the fact that you really can't get around this railroad embankment here. So working with the city of Charlottesville, we helped them put forth a proposal, which they were successful in getting $12.1 million from VDOT, from the state, administered through VDOT, to do a lot of streetscape improvements. So over the next couple of years, you're going to see we're going to be undergrounding a lot of the utilities, and they're going to be constructing a tunnel through the railroad embankment for a shared use path that will serve bicycles and pedestrians. So stay tuned. The streetscape here is going to be quite remarkable, which is going to turn this condition that you see without dedicated bike lanes, not a very commodious walk for pedestrians, into this view, which will be dedicated bike lanes, planted tree verges or tree lawns both on Emmett Street and Ivy Road, and a wide multimodal pathway. You can also see through the trees over here are steps. We're going to be raking back the topography, the steep hill that leads up to the international residential colleges. So there'll be a pedestrian stair that links up to the IRC as well. So as I mentioned, this is now the latest framework plan. We've moved the daylighted stream to the center, so not unlike Brandon Avenue, this is a working landscape. We will be storing a great deal of stormwater in major rain events for the surrounding neighborhoods so that hopefully, well, not hopefully, Airmont Street will not flood with this capacity. And we've developed these city-sized blocks, city-scaled blocks for development so that these now, not unlike the lawn, are organizing the landscape and the landscape is organizing the buildings. One of the major proposals was that we wanted to screen the garage as well. So we're proposing, we're building around the garage, and we did multiple programming studies to determine what program needs to be immediately accessible to parking versus other buildings like academic facilities, which would not necessarily need direct access to parking. So last year, when President Ryan arrived, he charged a group of faculty and other stakeholders across grounds to serve on the Emmett Ivy Task Force. And that task force's report is also housed on our website if you care to read the entire report. But the basic principles are that this parcel is to be open, very diverse, open to the community, and shared use so that buildings are not going to belong to any particular department or school at the university. So what this diagram represents is yellow is all shared use space. So that refers not only to the green spaces around here, but also to the hotel, and that every part of every building would be open, if not 24/7, pretty close to it, to make this a very active, pedestrian-focused area. The other thing it mentioned is the desire for the development of three nexuses: the creativity and experimental arts nexus, which is colored in pink here, the discovery nexus, and the democracy nexus. And these areas in gray are still for future growth of the university. So what came out of that specifically is that the School of Data Science, which is a new school that was voted on by the state and by the faculty this past fall, will be located in the Discovery Nexus, and this is the first site to be developed, along with the UVA Hotel and Conference Center. There was a hospitality task force that President Sullivan charged that asked us to look at whether, once the Cavalier Inn came down, whether there was a need for hospitality and conference services on this site. And the answer was a resounding yes. We have a very specific market here. The site is incredibly located. As I mentioned, it's geographically in the center of grounds. And we are now moving forward with the design of this hotel and conference center, as well as the School of Data Science. So if Althea invites me back in a year or two, I'll be able to share specifically what those buildings look like. So this is the design of the green space, the linear green. In this view, we're looking east towards Arts Grounds, and this building over on the left will be the new hotel and conference center, still to be designed. No, it's not all glass. And then this is that same view looking west, where this building will be the School of Data Science. But it's just meant to show how it is a real landscape-focused, pedestrian-focused environment. We're hoping that it will have a variety of different uses, restaurants, cafes, study spaces, maker spaces that make that ground floor very transparent and very busy. I also just wanted to say that it's similarly scaled to the lawn, but while the lawn is a landscape that's high and dry, this landscape is low and wet. We're about 80 feet difference in elevation between the lawn and this location, and the water table denoted by the existing stream and stormwater needs, is very high, so that it's still a very similarly scaled green, but it's a very different green. So the other key component to making this connectivity, remember that's kind of one of the highest priorities for us, to reduce the reliance on the single-use automobile, was this whole of the athletics area. As if you recall from that diagram, that connectivity diagram that I showed. So this is the view. This is, again, the Ivy Corridor and the garage looking from the opposite direction. This was the Cavalier Inn. And this was UHall and Honesty in the Cage. And one of those things we talked about is how do you weave this rational network of pathways through this area. So I'm jumping to the long-term vision. We're not imagining this is going to be built, anytime in the very near future. Hopefully we'll be making steps in this direction. But the idea is that we weave a series of pathways through this area. So from the Ivy Corridor and the garage, we have a couple of pathways over the tracks that go north-south, and then also east-west. This is existing Welsh indoor practice facility. This is existing Goodwin Bridge that crosses Emmett Street. We're hoping to have a plaza that connects to an athletics promenade that then connects what we affectionately term the Park of Parks up here, which are the competition venues, and then strengthen Massey Road as an entry and an exit from the university connecting up to the bypass. So the first step in getting to this vision was the demolition of UHall, which happened last spring. We moved all these, even though it wasn't being used as the basketball arena that it was purposely built for, there were still a lot of sports, we call them the Olympic sports, were moved out of UHall and into these modular units, which we are referring to as the training grounds. And so the first step in this process will be the construction of grass practice fields for football. Because what that will enable us to do eventually is build the football operations building adjacent to Welsh, which is the indoor practice facility, on the artificial turf field that's right adjacent to it, and then build the athletics complex along Massey Road opposite JPJ, and then allow us to turn what is now training grounds into a lacrosse and soccer practice field. So this is the interim step that we're now working towards. This was the view last spring before the demolition of UHall, and this is the view that hopefully we'll have this coming summer for the football team to practice on these two new practice fields. And you see the training grounds in the distance. This is a computer rendering, by the way. So if a picture's worth 1,000 words, I'm going to go through a couple of these before and afters pretty quickly, just to show the vision for what would happen when you come over the Goodwin Bridge. This is currently what you're faced with. Oops, sorry, went too fast. This is the view. If you come over the Goodwin Bridge, you end up landing on a plaza. This is the stair that goes down to Emmett Street, and this would be a plaza that would direct you to the athletics promenade with JPJ in the distance. This is the view now you get when you cross Goodwin Bridge. You have to weave your way down through all these parking lots, right? If you want to get over here, it's not an ideal situation for our students or any pedestrians, frankly. And then this is the proposed view for the athletics promenade, which would go through and under a bridge between the football operations building and the athletics complex across the street from JPJ and Massey Road. And this promenade, that image was taken from right here, this promenade would continue all the way to, again, the Park of Parks, which includes Davenport Stadium, Klockner and Lanigan, and as of January will include the softball stadium, which is currently under construction. So this is the view now you would get at the end of that promenade, and this is our proposal for seeing what softball stadium will look like in that corner. This is the view in the direction of home plate. And this was a construction photo just taken a couple of weeks ago, where you can see the canopy over the grandstand. It's going to be quite lovely. And this is the view now from the grandstand looking out towards the mountains without UHall, which would have previously blocked it. And so we hope you'll be there on opening day in March, beginning of March, because not only will it be a spectacular stadium, but it also will mark the 40th anniversary of softball at the university. I know, thank you, yes. So this is our rendering of what the stadium looks like, making that edge along Massey Road. Again, we're always trying to make better the pedestrian experience and the street and sidewalk experience, and how the stadium is really nestled into the topography. And the corner, before construction began, at Copley and Massey Roads, looking southwest, and what it currently looks like now. So we are moving forward with completion. It'll be completed in January. The team will be moving in and starting their practice for their first home game in March. And all of this, I keep wanting to stress, is the idea of making these pulse nodes, if you will, to make this walk and make this connected, with the Ivy Corridor being in the center between Central Grounds and North Grounds, and enabling essentially a 10-minute walk between each of these dots to allow students to move to North Grounds and back. So I could go on forever. I won't. But I just wanted to show you a little sampling of some of the projects. I won't have time to go into detail now, but again, happy to come back at another date. One of the projects is the new addition for Alderman Library to replace the stacks, which are really this kind of impenetrable bunker right now on University Avenue, with a much more open, welcoming, bright addition, which will also include the stacks, but also include a lot of student space, study space, and will most importantly have terraces that open down onto University Avenue, making it much more welcoming for the community to come into the building, which obviously, as you know, currently does not happen. Or the Musculoskeletal Center, which is on Ivy Road. This is the Ivy Mountain Musculoskeletal Center, which is a comprehensive orthopedics hospital, which you may see under construction on Ivy Road right off the bypass. Or the Contemplative Commons, which will be an academic building unlike any other at UVA, which will be constructed on the parking lot adjacent to our beautiful Dell, and will act as a beacon, more or less, for Emmett Street when it's constructed, which will also include an accessible bridge. If you know the bridge at Ruffner from Newcomb, it's not accessible. There are steep stairs on either end, which precludes a lot of people from using it. So this building will include an accessible bridge which will connect Newcomb all the way to Old Dorms. Or finally, our recently, almost finally constructed hospital. They're fitting out the upper bed tower floors, which is one of those buildings in the category of I hope you see, but hope you don't need to visit. So finally, I just want to end with one project, which is much smaller in scale, but will have a major impact for the university, which is the Memorial to Enslaved Laborers. This project started almost 10 years ago, and it was fueled by a student-led competition. It was a student initiative that started this project, that we needed to come to grips with our past. And so I just want to show you, this is a engraving from 1827, and it's one of the few images we have that shows an enslaved worker on the lawn. This student-led initiative led President Sullivan to form the President's Commission on Slavery at the University, the PCSU. And the PCSU had a lot of recommendations, but one of those recommendations, and by the way, the report, which is a fascinating report, was published last year if you want to look that up. But one of those recommendations was to develop a physical memorial to the enslaved at the university. And so in 2016, we hired a design team which was composed of architects and engagement faculty and historians. It was a really remarkable team whose process was really part and parcel of this project. So for the first 6 months or so, there was no pen to paper. We went out into the community, we listened, we conducted surveys online, we were had open forums, and finally, when we did start drawing, the drawings were really over 3 sites. They developed two concepts for each site, so that we were not sold on any one particular site or one particular design. And finally, we had a design that we brought to the Board of Visitors in 2017, I believe, and it's really the process that has marked us as a university and has enabled other universities and other institutions dealing with their own difficult past to ask us what our process was. So the not only is the memorial itself a gathering place, but that it has been designed as being part of a ritual with the city of Charlottesville that will happen. There's a walk that happens, a Freedom and Liberation Day on March 3rd that was charged by the city council and called Liberation Day on March 3rd. And this will be part of the ritual walk that starts downtown at the slave auction block at the City County Court, walks along Main Street, and has gone to UVA. So the Freedom Ring, when it is constructed, will be part of this ritual. And it was one of these photographs that was taken on one of the first walks that gave us the for our memorial. So the memorial itself is being constructed on the triangle of grass just southeast of Brooks Hall, and the two pathways that are tangent to this. One is it aligns with the North Star, which the freed enslaved followed on their path to freedom, and it's also, we are told, aligns with sunset on Liberation Day on March 3rd. The memorial itself encompasses the idea of a clearing, a gathering space, and also utilizes water as a symbolic idea of rebirth as part of the memorial. And the form itself is based upon the broken shackle of the slave as well as the more joyful ring shout. And so the design here is a series of interlocking and layered rings that allow for gathering, liberation, honoring the enslaved in the writing of their names on the wall, and the idea of the artwork that is on the exterior of the memorial, which will act at a variety of scales. And so this was the site previous to the beginning of construction at the triangle of grass. You can see Brooks Hall in the distance. And this was our rendering showing the memorial situated. It also uses the topography to be nestled into the topography of the site and acts as a clearing. We'll be planting these trees around the memorial. And you can just make out the eyes of Isabella Gibbons, who's one of the real success stories. She was an emancipated slave who became a school teacher, and she and her husband raised a family in Charlottesville. And Gibbons House is one of our student dormitories named after her. And so I don't know if you can make out her eyes. This is the status of the construction at the moment, but it's quite beautiful to see the eyes from a distance, and as it comes up, as you come upon the memorial, it's very textural, and you start losing the eyes, but you start seeing the names on the interior of the memorial. So this was one of our renderings showing the 4,000 or so memory marks that we're calling the gashes in the wall that denote all the enslaved that worked here at the university, and the 973 or so names will be carved on these walls. We'll have a timeline of the history of slavery at the university, which will be inscribed in this granite bench, and the granite is locally quarried stone that is called Virginia mist, which is also found in the pavers of the rotunda, so there's a lot of dualities in the meanings here. And the thin scrim of water will be going over the timeline almost as this redemptive symbolism. And this is a recent construction photo of the interior of the memorial. You can see some of the gashes and some of the names. We call the gashes memory marks. And finally, an aerial of what this will look like off of the brick walk, the gathering space in the clearing of trees, and a recent photograph of the project under construction. So this memorial will be dedicated April 11th. We hope you'll be there for that as well. It'll be quite a moving day. And finally, all I have to say after this is go Hoos. Hallelujah. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Got one right here up front.
Are there any plans for the site that is across the street from the old Cavalier Inn that the motel burned down?
We do not own that property. So there are plans. There is the hotel owner is redeveloping the site for the Gallery Court Hotel. He got approval from the city council for a special use permit, so there'll be a relatively tall tower on that site, but we do not own that.
Today is a football game.
Yes.
In the springtime, there's going to be lacrosse games, baseball games, and softball games. Back here.
Thank you.
In the springtime, there's going to be softball games, lacrosse games, and football, and softball, lacrosse, and baseball.
Parking.
At University Hall. Parking. Everything is being built on parking lots.
Yes.
Where are we supposed to park?
I understand. And every one of my colleagues at every university deals with this question. We have just completed a comprehensive parking and transportation study, which looks at parking grounds wide. And we have two projects into in the capital plan for two new parking garages. One that will be located on Fontaine Research Park, and one that will be located in North Grounds. So we have maintained the 2,500 or so parking spaces that we need for events, and we're moving things around. So, for instance, there was a grassy area in front of McHugh, which will now be paved, and more parking will be put there. But that is one of the issues that we are keenly aware of. And in all of those master plans, we never reduce the amount of event parking, even as we build on those parking lots. So the question is if we have more sports venues. The only new sports venue is softball, which existed up at the park. So we're working with athletics in their scheduling as well, and they're very well aware that you can't have everything all the time full on. And it's not the sports venues that are the problem, actually. It's the events that happen at JPJ. It's the concerts. So if there's ever, a concert with something else that is a major event, then those are those problems. But we're always taking into consideration when we're doing things. So, for instance, the 1,200 car garage at Emmett Ivy will not be turned over to the Emmett Ivy development just right away. We're phasing those out. So we are looking at where to move cars, but it is a trade-off. We have events right in the middle of areas where you want walkability. and you want student safety, and you don't want to just keep spreading further and further out. So we are taking all those things into consideration.
Hi.
Hi.
You mentioned the UVA hotel. I had previously worked at George Mason University that had Mason Inn that was fiscally not viable, lost millions of dollars a year, and was closed.
Right.
I'm curious how we can avoid the same pitfalls, either marketing or architecturally, to ensure that that hotel stays relevant, used, and is fiscally solvent.
Thank you. That's an excellent question. J.J. Davis, who's our new COO, was the financial person over at George Mason, so she, in particular, has been very focused on this. We have done, with our University of Virginia Foundation, we've done numerous marketing studies and looking at the average daily rate to make sure that we do have a viable business there. It's, Mason's Hotel was kind of in the middle of things. This is right in the center of things. I mean, the middle of things, in the middle of campus, right? This is much more about a very accessible place. I received many, many phone calls from alums when we took the Cavalier Inn down saying, this is an incredible site. Why are you doing this? We stay there all the time. Well, people stayed there not because it was a great stay, right? But because it was convenient and it was right in the middle of things. So we don't want to go into this foolishly. So we're going to have a separate hotel operator who is very experienced in management, because we as a university, it's not our core business. So although the university will be building the hotel, the foundation will be managing it, and they've hired an outside operator as well. So tell all your friends and family, come stay at the hotel.
Thanks very much for your presentation. I was just wondering, is there any pushback from the historic preservation aspect of the architectural firm about modernizing but still keeping, the integrity of the academical village? For example, Brandon Avenue just looked very modern, lots of green space, which is great, but then you sort of lose, the original charm of the small footprint of the university.
Yeah. Well, so we keep the small footprint of the university. We're very protective about the UNESCO World Heritage Site. And every question gets debated ad infinitum, as you can imagine, from the color of the columns to the construction of accessibility ramps. So everything is done very mindfully. As you move out from the core, it's hard to relate to our students as well when we design neoclassical buildings, right? So I think there's an intent to maintain a certain proportion and a certain relationship to landscape and keep all those things that we love about the lawn as we move farther out. We're not designing all glass buildings, for instance, right, as it moves farther out. But we do want more transparency. I think the idea of having a difference from the lawn as opposed to extending ersatz Jeffersonian architecture strengthens the core as opposed to diluting it. Now, I will say that there's an exception to that, which is the addition to Alderman Library. Alderman Library is, within that historic center, and it's right next to the rotunda, and that, in my opinion, was not a place to deviate from the architectural language. So we hired an excellent architect, HBRA, from Chicago, and we're building a building that is sympathetic to the existing historic Alderman, while there will obviously you'll see some differences. There's going to be a lot more glass than you would have had originally, but it is a reinterpretation of the north elevation of historic Alderman Library. So I think it's a question of where we build these buildings and the relationship to the historic core. But we're very mindful about looking at the grounds overall and understanding the value of that historic core as you move out.
I'm curious to know whether and what might be going on in planning for university holdings of undeveloped land, thinking specifically, for example, of the Hayward Farm, which I think is a couple of 100 acres. that was bequeathed to the university, but I'm sure there are other such undeveloped spots.
That's a great question. So that's Foxhaven, and we have other holdings like Blue Ridge, many, many acres, and Morven Farms, etc. Many of those parcels are held by the University of Virginia Foundation. We just completed a study with the Urban Land Institute, and we're going to be embarking on an overall study of our land holdings and how they tie into the university's strategic plan. So the direct answer to your question is there are no plans at the moment for any of those parcels. And again, those are parcels that were acquired further out from the university. What our main focus has been is building closer into the core and identifying those redevelopment zones. So I will say that those parcels like Foxhaven and Blue Ridge and Morven are being looked at, but there's no specific plans at the moment.
I read about what was described as not insignificant gaps in funding for some of the nexuses on Emmett Ivy. What's the plan for that?
Well, I think I'm not quite sure what not insignificant gaps means, but there are plans for the creative arts nexus, for instance, which is dependent upon philanthropy. At the moment, there is not a plan for that, but the School of Data Science is fully funded. That is philanthropy driven, and the Hotel and Conference Center is being paid for by the university through debt financing, and there's a robust business plan for that. So was there a particular project you had in mind? So yeah, the Creativity Nexus is philanthropy driven, and that does not have funding yet. We're hoping that it will. Yes. Oh.
Yes, multiple choice. Do you have any remorse of painting a nice copper dome white? Do you have any notions about the Leonard Sandridge access? Will that be both north and south access? Now it's only pretty much in the northerly direction to get on the bypass.
Do I have a third question?
And a third, since most of orthopedics at Fontaine is moving to the old Kluge Children's site, Ivy Mountain, the future of Fontaine. And thanks for your presentation.
Thank you. So the answers are no, yes, and no. No, I don't have regrets about painting a beautiful copper dome white. That was the intent all along, and thankfully it was done before I arrived. So I didn't even really have to opine about that. Yes, I think the one-way interchange at Leonard Sandridge and Massey Road, and the bypass, is one of those things I would love to study. That's off the record, right? There are no plans to do that, but that would really, that's the nut to unlock all the traffic, both at Ivy Road and North Grounds. Imagine, everybody going to North Grounds, it's a one-way loop. Right, I could give a whole presentation just on North Grounds and show you the traffic studies, that everything goes in and has to come back out, right? So that would be a great nut to unlock. And not, again, this was before my time. I hear not so great things about the Western Bypass. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about completing the interchange. And your third question was Ivy Mountain. So a couple of years ago, we did an integrated space plan, which was a strategic space plan for the health system, which looked at all the aging facilities in the West Complex and all the ambulatory clinics, and determined that it would be great if we could remove a lot of those clinics and research spaces from the West Complex, which is down at the intersection of Main Street and JPA, and move them to Fontaine in order to where there's lots of parking, great access. In order to do that, we had to start moving things out of Fontaine, and the orthopedics department was spread out in Fontaine and also needed major upgrades. So we designed the Ivy Mountain Musculoskeletal Center, which will be kind of a one-stop shop for all of the orthopedics, and that will free up a lot of space in Fontaine, which will then allow the decanting of West Complex to Fontaine. So it's a bit of a multiple move, but the facilities at Ivy Mountain will be quite spectacular, and it's not a hospital. It's a 23-hour bed facility, essentially, not bed, 23-hour recuperative facility.
One final fast question.
One final fast question.
Thank you. Regarding the bond project, did you look at vehicular access, the required vehicular access to those buildings being somewhere other than around the plaza, which is, you mentioned, is pretty much geared to pedestrians and bicycles, and having this ring road around it?
Did we look at other options?
Yeah, from the rears of the buildings or somewhere other than that front plaza.
I see what you mean. Well, so Brandon Avenue was a dead-end street, right? It ended at the 400 block, and it was a city street. So you went down, you circled around, you came back. So we did not really change that access because now it's a one-way loop around the green median. But all the parking is accessed on the west side of the street from Brandon Avenue and around to the back. But for the east side, it's accessed from Monroe Lane. So if you want to park at the Student Health and Wellness Center or access the Bond House, you're coming down Monroe Lane and accessing the podium parking underneath the building. So to the question about parking, I know athletics is slightly different, but there was a lot of parking on Brandon Avenue, but because it is topographically like a ridge, we're able to create podium parking underneath the buildings and tuck it under without affecting the parking count for that area. So does that answer your question?
Somewhat.
Okay. See me afterwards.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Alice Raucher for speaking for Lifetime Learning today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
We've got a raffle drawing if you want to do the honors.
Oops.